Think about the last person you fell hard for. You'd probably say it was the smile, the humor, maybe the way they dressed. But evolutionary psychologists would disagree. Your conscious mind barely had a vote. While you were busy noticing their laugh, your brain was quietly running a much older program, scanning them for survival signals wired in over 200,000 years of human history. Today, we're pulling that program apart, the real, slightly unsettling science of attraction, and why your brain may be choosing your partners before you do. Start with the face. Across every culture researchers have studied, symmetry reads as attractive, no exceptions. The reason traces back to survival. For our ancestors, asymmetry was a red flag. It could mean genetic mutations, parasites, poor health during development. So when you clock someone with even features, your brain isn't just registering attractive. It's registering durable. And it's not just the face doing the talking. A deep voice signals testosterone in men. A higher pitch reads as youth in women. Even waist-to-hip ratio is quietly doing its own work. All of it functions like an ancient billboard, advertising fertility and strength before a word is spoken. Attraction isn't just what you see or hear, it's also what you smell. There's a well-known study, nicknamed the sweaty t-shirt experiment, where women were asked to smell shirts worn by different men. The pattern held up again and again. Women gravitated toward the scent of men whose immune system genes, the MHC, looked nothing like their own. It's biology hedging its bets, pushing us toward partners with a different immune setup so any future kids could fight off a wider range of disease. So while you think you're looking for love, some part of your immune system is quietly shopping for its missing piece. None of this evolved for the world we live in now. Our brains were built for tribes of maybe 150 people, where finding someone genetically compatible was rare enough to matter. Now a dating app hands you thousands of options before lunch. The result is a kind of evolutionary short circuit. Psychologists call it the paradox of choice, where people start to feel less like people and more like a search you haven't finished. Everyone's holding out for a perfect match that was never biologically on the menu. Attraction gets someone through the door. But what happens once the chemical high fades and obsession curdles into something closer to paranoia? If you've made it this far into the wiring of your own brain, stick around, because next we're crossing into a much bigger glitch. How this 200,000-year-old code is falling apart in the modern world. The dating landscape hasn't just changed. The whole server crashed. Before we get to the spreadsheet of modern heartbreak, let's rewind further to what our grandparents were actually looking for. Because spoiler, it wasn't a dating profile with 6 carousel photos and a gym mirror selfie. Our grandparents ran on a completely different template. Picture the economy your grandfather grew up in, post-war expansion, real wages climbing. One income could comfortably buy a house, a car, and still leave money for a Sunday roast. It wasn't utopia. But it was, biologically speaking, a golden window for survival. And a stable environment does something specific to a man's body. It lets his testosterone actually sit where it's supposed to. This isn't nostalgia talking, it's measurable. Research tracking male aging found men today have significantly lower testosterone than men the same age had back in the 1980s, and it's not explained by smoking or weight. The decline shows up even after researchers control for that. A 60-year-old man measured in the mid-2000s had testosterone roughly 17% lower than a 60-year-old measured in the late 1980s. Same age, different hormonal decade. Higher, steadier testosterone isn't just about chest hair, it's linked to a calmer nervous system, more stability under stress, what some evolutionary psychologists call a masculine frame, less reactive, harder to rattle. Grandpa wasn't emotionally unavailable. He was hormonally chill. Traditional marriage was a mutual, survival-based transaction. Men provided physical resources and protection, women ran the household and raised the kids. And on the other side of the equation, the women of that era weren't juggling a dating app, a side hustle, and 4,000 strangers' opinions on their body before breakfast. No social media to compare herself to, often no outside job competing for her attention. Her focus, for better or worse, was the relationship and the household, which, whatever you think of the gender politics, tends to produce a very specific kind of relational consistency. Call it loyalty. Call it lack of options. Evolutionary psychology doesn't really do sentimentality, but the divorce numbers from that generation back it up. It wasn't always a fairy tale, but both sides got something tangible out of it. Now fast forward to today's dating pool. And well, bless our hearts. The average modern man is marinating in endocrine disruptors, sitting 11 hours a day, doom scrolling instead of lifting anything heavier than his phone, and somehow we're all shocked the masculine frame went extinct like the mammoth it evolved to hunt. Researchers now track adolescent and young adult testosterone declining across the last 2 decades, not from age, from generation. Millennials didn't lose their masculinity in a poker game. It got quietly siphoned off by plastic, stress, and a sedentary lifestyle nobody consented to. Meanwhile, women are out here financially independent, emotionally self-aware, in therapy, in the gym, arguably operating at the highest baseline quality of life women have ever had access to in human history. So here's the punchline nobody ordered. The modern dating pool has, on average, softer men and sharper women, both shaped by economics and biology, both quietly convinced the other side got the better deal. It's not really a fair fight. It's barely even the same fight. It's 2 different generations of the same species trying to read each other's group chat. Fast forward to now, and that blueprint is in tatters. The modern woman is financially independent, highly educated, fully capable of providing for herself. She doesn't need a man to hunt anything or sign a lease. The numbers back this up. In Western countries, women initiate divorce roughly 70% of the time. Among college-educated women, that climbs closer to 90%. Sit with that for a second. Nearly 3/4 of marriages end at the wife's initiative. Why? Because evolutionary instinct is colliding with modern independence. Our ancestors stayed together because leaving meant starvation. Today, a woman can look at a relationship that isn't working, recognize her needs aren't being met, and walk away without risking her survival. The old safety net of marriage has been replaced by a much more honest reckoning. Which brings us back to why our primitive brains behave so badly once we're actually in a relationship. If the modern landscape is this unstable, it triggers our oldest defense system, jealousy. We're told jealousy is a personality flaw, a sign you need therapy. But from an evolutionary standpoint, it's more like a highly sophisticated security system. Psychologists call it mate guarding. Back in prehistory, if your partner wandered off with the neighbor, you didn't just get your feelings hurt. You lost your survival security, your genetic legacy, possibly the only person who knew how to keep the fire going. For a male ancestor, another man in the picture meant risking 20 years raising a child that wasn't his. For a female ancestor, if her partner left, she faced a real chance of not surviving the winter. So evolution didn't leave room for calm conversations about it. It gave us a hair-trigger alarm. The moment your partner smiles a beat too long at someone, your amygdala throws a full chemical tantrum, cortisol, adrenaline, the whole alert system lighting up. You're not being irrational. Your brain is treating your relationship like something worth guarding with its life, because for most of human history, it was. Which raises a real paradox. If the modern world is this volatile and jealousy this exhausting, why bother sticking with one partner at all? Shouldn't we be spreading our genes as wide as possible? Why did monogamy ever catch on? Blame human babies for being so completely useless. A baby horse stands up 20 minutes after birth and starts outrunning predators. A human baby, left alone for an hour, will find a way to choke on something or wander into danger. It takes 2 decades of steady investment before a human is anywhere near ready to be on its own. Monogamy didn't become the norm because our ancestors loved candlelit dinners. It became the norm because raising a child alone in prehistoric conditions was close to a death sentence. One parent guarded the kid, the other went out and brought back food. Monogamy is essentially a survival partnership. Your brain locked you into it because splitting the work was the only way to actually get through it. But signing you up for a lifetime commitment didn't make that commitment easy to keep. There's a strange biological quirk in mammalian brains called the Coolidge effect. Introduce a male mammal to a female and they'll mate. Eventually his dopamine drops and he's spent, done for the day. But introduce a new female, and his dopamine spikes right back up like he's had 5 espressos. The fatigue vanishes. Why? Because the brain rewards novelty hard. It doesn't care about your anniversary or your shared streaming account. It treats a new partner like a fresh shot at the genetic lottery. That's why long-term relationships take real, conscious effort. You're constantly working against a dopamine system that's quietly rooting for you to stray. So here's where that leaves us. The next time you feel a rush of butterflies, a wave of irrational jealousy, or the urge to end things because the dishes weren't loaded right, it's not really about the dishes. Raise a glass to 200,000 years of anxious, cave-dwelling ancestors who wired your brain to act like an overprotective, dopamine-addicted security guard. We're not driving this thing. We're passengers. If your own wiring has ever made you do something embarrassing in the name of love, you already know exactly what this episode was about.